All right, and welcome. This is Shane. Justin, you're here as well. So is Alex, and actually Ahmed is here as well, but he's deafened right now.
Hello. Sorry, I needed a second here.
Yeah. um. So this is something we wanted to kind of do on the side. We're not entirely sure what to call this, but you'll know what we called it or ended up calling it because that'll be the title of the video. But this is kind of like a mini podcast, a side podcast type of thing. Because in like the actual podcast, a lot of the time me and Justin would just end up just devolving into arguing with one another. So we decided to make that its own content. And what better first episode would there be if we didn't argue about one of the most divisive cards in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Maxx, and it's whether or not it's healthy to be in the format.
Yeah, and it's a really hot topic right now because it is back in Master Duel.
And in the OCG as well.
But it's never like been gone in the OCG. But I don't know about you, I've never played OCG until Master Duel came out, and now I'm playing in like a completely new format, and like everything's weird and different.
It is definitely different. I will also argue that because the OCG, and not just Master Duel, but like the only best of threes that you'd see in a in the OCG are like at a local level. Their events, their YCSs and everything, I'm almost positive are a best of one format.
That I am not sure personally.
That is 100% true.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Which also is it like a bit of a adds to a little bit of a different like discussion. Like, is Maxx fine in a best of one format, or is it just too much in a match kind of format? But
I do want to touch on that at some point because I have a very different opinion on Maxx in best of one than I do in a best of three.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just get our stances out of the way. I am of
well,
the
wait.
school.
Have you put up the prompt here?
What do you mean? Have I put up the prompt?
Like, have you introduced like the main topic or the main argument?
Yeah. I said that a little while ago. I said like, what better topic would there be? Like for our first episodes besides besides talking about Maxx, like one of the most divisive cards.
What does Maxx do, guys?
Yeah, let's read the effect.
So, I guess we'll start off with what Maxx does. All right. So I have it pulled up right here. Maxx is a hand trap. It's an effect monster, level 2 Earth insect, 500 attack, 200 defense. Its effect is during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw one card. You can only use one Maxx per turn.
And the main argument here is whether or not we believe that this effect is healthy for Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game. Is it okay to exist at all? And Shane, I'll let you start out with your words.
Gotcha. So I played through. I used to play back in the day, 2011 to around like maybe 2011, 2012 till like 2014 before I left the game. 2014, 2015, I think. And then I came back in 2019. By then, Maxx had long been banned. In fact, it was banned while I was playing it. I think like immediately following Dragon Ruler format, or even a little bit before, it was hella banned. Hella banned. Having played through it, and having played through it a second time now in Master Duel, and I played a substantial amount of that, this card, I believe, can never see the light of day, or should never see the light of day. It essentially, what it does is it rewards unskilled players by essentially turn skipping your opponent. And the games are decided by this one card. So let's say you're a combo player, and there is an argument as well, because combo decks have gotten a lot stronger than they were back in
out of hand entirely.
Yeah, combo decks to an extent have gotten out of hand, but that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh goes. What I will say though is if you are a combo player and you do not have the out to Maxx, if your opponent, because realistically Maxx is not a neg one, it is not under any circumstances a neg one. It's usually just a plus. It's a neutral card. Because realistically, you're only ever chaining Maxx to the effect that summons something, so you can get a guaranteed draw. So let's say you're playing a combo deck. You do not draw the out to Maxi, so a Called by the Grave Witch in the TCG is limited. Cross out Designator, which is another thing I wanted to bring up because it's a format warping card. I'll get back to that later. If your opponent drops Maxi on you, you either have to play through the Maxi, or thus taking the Maxi challenge, and negate essentially every single thing you do on your side of the field potentially, and I would say the vast majority of cases, because they're going to gain so much advantage off of that one Maxi that no matter what you put up on your field, it's not going to matter. Or you just end your turn right then and there. It's a turn skip. It's either you give me so much advantage that whatever you do, I don't care, or end your turn right now and I'm just going to beat you the next turn. And theoretically, it's a good tool for control decks, or decks that are a little bit, not as powerful as the best premier meta combo decks. But what people fail to realize is that those premier meta combo decks are also going to be playing 3 copies of this card. And that's just kind of like my piece on it. And I'll get to the format warping later, unless you want me to go off now.
No, I'd kind of like to chat, because you already have, like, put out a bunch of points that I kind of want to poke at. So my stance is that, now, I have not played as long as Shane. I started back in, when did I start? It was, like, right after the Gumblar ban, so that was, what, 2018? 2019?
It was probably it was either earlier 2019 or late 2018, because you and Ahmed got me back into the game in October of 2019.
Okay, so then, yeah, it had to have been early 2019 that we got into it. I had played, like, a little bit. We've talked about this. I had played a little bit before, but nothing serious, and now how long is that, like, 3 years in?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it, because, like, at least 2 of those years were COVID years, but I digress.
I never played during TCG Maxi era, but now that it's in Master Duel, I've been playing a very good chunk with it. And I think, personally, that it is healthy for the game. I think that a big point that I want to poke right away, and that we can just start talking about, is I don't think it is the end-all be-all turn skip or blowout card. I think that more than anything, it tests a combo player to know exactly where they can extend without, like, giving their opponent needless extra cards. In fact, I think it is actually a bad idea to just pass if you get max seed. I think that is just, without being too mean about it, I think that's just like a baby way to handle it. Is like, wah, my opponent will draw cards, I'm scared. Because in reality, like, yeah, they might draw a hand trap, but they also might draw nothing of use. And I'm not saying that you should full combo under Maxi, because that's equally as stupid, unless your full combo is the nuts. But I do think that you can play in Maxi. I don't think it just ends the turn. I think you can very easily just extend into 1 or 2 negates that you know you can get out quickly and pass there, rather than just give your opponent all their cards or nothing, but also end on nothing. Another thing that I want to kind of... I'll let you respond to that first, Shane, before I go into the next portion.
Thank you. I was trying really, really hard not to interrupt. I was like practically holding my mouth shut. I'm really bad at interrupting.
I could feel the tension.
So to put it this way, if your opponent drops Maxi, and your argument is it's kind of like a not cry. Well, I guess it is kind of like cry about it.
It is a cry about it card.
Yeah.
It's like,
if you end your turn right there, you think that's just overreacting to it.
I think that's the worst thing you can do, because then you give up literally all advantage. Drawing a couple cards so that you can get some sort of interaction on the board is much more efficient than just straight up saying, nah, put my hand down. You can now attack on your first turn and full combo on your first turn.
Well, that's the thing, though.
And start with 6 cards, because you're still giving your opponent a draw. No matter what you do, they're
But
going to draw for
realistically,
turn.
if you yeah, they start with 6 cards, but like, okay, if you decide to play through it, there's a reason why they say you either end your turn or you go all out. Because if you half-ass a combo and have them draw, let's say 4 cards, you use 4 summons to get to a single negate or a single interaction on your opponent's turn. That means they are starting their turn. They had 5 cards in hand, they discarded 1 for Maxx C, and they started with 4. They started with 9 cards plus another one. They start with double the amount of cards that you started in your hand. There's one of the most powerful effects in this game is to draw cards. There's a reason why Pot of Greed is banned. There's a reason why a lot of generic draw cards are at one. The Pot of Desires just got limited. There's a reason why a lot of these generic draw cards are limited and or banned in some capacity. Even though there are a lot of other ones in the format. I'm looking at you, Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity. But
I will say, really quick, I'm not arguing that drawing cards isn't powerful. I'm arguing that it's not so powerful that it warps the game to unplayable.
I would argue that it absolutely does. Because those cards that you are drawing, yes, they could be interaction, they could be hand traps, they could be whatever. More often than not, is if you are optimizing your deck for the most, optimal build to get your win con out, and you have extenders and everything like that, you are going to draw into enough extenders to the point where a single interaction on your opponent's field, you just gave them 4 extra cards and you have a single interaction, is not going to matter. There are times where like modern combo decks can play through like 3 or 4 interactions, like the good ones. So you're giving your opponent double the hand size, the starting hand size, and giving them more extenders, more possible extenders, more possible interactions on their turn. It's just degenerate. It's not helpful in any sort of way, because like I said, the only way that Maxx C can be legal is if you also make legal like the most degenerate combo decks that put out these effects that essentially lock your opponent out of the game, because those are realistically the only effects that can combat a 18 card starting hand.
I don't know. I think currently, like, one of the strongest cards in the game with an 80% plus win rate is Dragoon.
Or was. I don't think Dragoon has that anymore, but still.
But it's still significantly, like, broken. Any deck can play that, and that's a normal summon,
a special, another special, and then another special. So that is a +2. That is a +2.
To put out a card that's untargetable and undestroyable.
Is single negate. Now let's say one of the cards. Now they could have just drawn into the bricks. The person who used the Maxx C. They could have also drawn into Dark Ruler No More. They could have drawn into Forbidden Droplets. They could have drawn into, because Dragoon is a single negate. If you're ending on just singly Dragoon and maybe like set 4, like, are you telling me that those are the only decks that can be played now under Maxx C? Are either and that's the other thing. That's the other thing I wanted to touch on as well. I'll let you get to your point as well. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep rambling if you let me.
No, it's fine. No, my thing is like, let them draw into that Dark Ruler No More. What does that do to Dragoon exactly?
It negates its effects.
But its lingering effect is still there. It can't activate its base effect.
Under Dark Ruler No More, does it mean that monsters cannot activate their effects? Or I forget what Dark Ruler No More does. It just negate?
I'd have to look, but I'm pretty sure
I'm pretty sure it negates all face up. No, I'm pretty sure it negates all face up effect monsters. And you cannot activate monster effects in response to this card. So it gets rid of all of Dragoon's effects. It can now be targeted, it can now be destroyed, it can now not negate. Also, the fact that if I'm drawing 3 cards, that single negate might just be like, okay, I gotta bait this out. He has to negate this, or I'm just like, or he just loses his monster, and now I can just full combo off. And that's how it was in practice. Back in the day, that is exactly how it was in practice. You had, on one hand, one Dragon Rule player playing 3 Maxx C. On the other hand, the other Dragon Ruler player playing 3 Maxx C. If only one of them saw it, the person who saw it is going to win. 9 times out of 10. 99 times out of 100. They're going to win. Because that advantage that they're getting off of Maxx C, there's a reason why card economy is one of the most, if not the most important things in the game. Is if this card nets you an advantage, you want to play that card. Max C is just pure advantage, and that's also the other thing I'm saying. It's not a well-timed interruption. You of all people should be an advocate of effects that are well-timed. Or like you have to use like that's because that's skill. Being able to know when to use a card effect and when to interrupt what your opponent's doing, that is how skill is measured in this game.
I would say Maxi does still take skill. The more that I play Master Duel, the more I realize that you can very easily waste a Maxi. Like,
No, you can, but that's the thing. You can waste the Max C because they pass their turn.
no. You can, if especially in a best of one format, right? You drop a Maxi against an Eldritch player, congratulations, you just started -1 card in your fucking
Well,
hand.
that's the only part of the Maxi that needs skill is you have to chain it to an effect. Like you don't just go standby phase Maxi.
You
It's
drop it against a
realistically
deck that normal summons, like, fuck.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing though. Like you don't have to activate it during the standby phase or anything. You can okay, let's say you're playing against Eldritch, okay? They set 4 activate the spell that summons it from deck. You chain Max C, you get a +0. You draw a card. That's fine. Against Eldritch, let's say they're, a Conquistador, chain Scarlet Sanguine, you drop Max C on as chain link 3, you get a +1. You just drew 2 cards. Yes, they pop something on your field and they
Though that still takes
that's against
skill. You need to know when those cards are.
I would say that takes the absolute minimum amount of skill to be like, read a card and be like, okay, the chain link is still open.
You
read a
are
card,
giving Yu-Gi-Oh players way more credit than they deserve.
Just yeah, well, yeah, I guess, but still, like you read a card, be like, oh, this card special summons. All right, Maxi, and then for the rest of the turn, they can't do anything. They can't special summon anything. If they activate any other Eldritch card, other than Golden Land Forever, shout out to the guy who negated his own Hakero.
Well, that's okay. That's what I'm saying though. Like you're giving Yu-Gi-Oh players a lot of credit to read stuff.
But that's
at
the
all.
thing. Like we're talking about like the meta. We're talking about the top players. Any top player.
I'm not talking just top player. I'm talking. My point is that generally.
But the thing is this I don't think it's going to be healthy. But what I was going to say before. Oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say before. Oh, it's like a no skill card. It rewards for how much it rewards a player, for how much you have to put into this card, it's not good. So like Ash, you have to, for an Ash Blossom to be effective, you have to know exactly when this Ash Blossom is going to be the most effective. For a Nibiru, you have to do it when they're at their most susceptible, their most fragile, and before they get any monster negates out, or bait another monster negate out with another hand trap or something. Same can be said for Imperm. For Droll, I guess, is kind of like the same kind of deal. It's a little bit no skill, but it at least doesn't net you advantage. It just prevents your opponent from gaining advantage, which I think there's an argument for. Lancia, as well, doesn't net you any advantage. It just prevents your player or your opponent.
Lancia is no skill.
Lancia is no skill. No, I'm not
Okay.
arguing that there is skill. I'm just saying that that's fine because it doesn't net the turn player the most advantage.
I would say it still does. Like, it's literally the same thing, except instead of drawing cards, you're literally locking your opponent out of the game.
Yeah, which again, there's like an argument to be made for these other cards, but we're mainly talking about Max C here.
Yeah.
It's not a single point of interaction. You just drop it, and now for the rest of your opponent, essentially, you're giving them that choice. You're giving them to either pass the turn and lose the game, most likely, or give your opponent so much advantage that whatever you do is absolutely null and void because you gave them that much advantage. You let them start their turn with 15 cards in hand, and they can do whatever the hell they want. Pretty much, they can play through pretty much any sort of thing. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Let's say you're not playing a premier combo deck. You're not playing Drytron, who can end on a Herald with 4 negates and this, that, and the other thing. You're not playing against Tri-Brigade with a format Oppo and Revolt set. Let's say you're playing against Earth Machine, okay? You're playing against my deck. You drop Maxi on me. I have to pass. My deck revolves around essentially an entire engine of cards to just draw 2 cards, to do what Max C does on 2 special summons. And also, I can't play through that. Whatever I do is not going to prevent anything you do. What am I going to do? I'm going to end on My best board in that deck, and I guess yeah, this is an argument not to play the deck, but it's fun. Is to end on a Dora with quick effect pop underneath it, and in a Citadel engrave, and then I just drew 2 cards, and I have maybe a couple hand traps in hand. That's it. That's it. It essentially gets rid of an entire archetype of deck mid range.
I would argue no, because you can also play it, and it gives you a mid-range, not really meta deck.
Ah, okay. You played right into my. You've activated my trap card.
It gives you just as much advantage as it does the other person. So you are now able to max see them, and now you get to see cards, and the game. Essentially, your deck is now on a higher level because you were able to.
Because
like,
every deck in the format is now playing 3 Maxx C. I completely agree, except for the wrong reasons. And this is the reason
here is... I don't know that
that's
bad.
I think it's extremely bad. So you referenced the OCG format. And that it's legal in there, it's been legal in there, and they seem to be doing fine. I know Reddit and Discord groups and all that kind of stuff aren't the best sources. But every single OCG player, people who say they played OCG or whatever, which they very well could be lying, so take that with a grain of salt, they have said that the entire format revolves around that card. When they were able to, they were playing as many copies of Ash, as many copies of Called By, as many copies of Crossout Designator as they could to counter this one card.
There were outs to this card.
Okay, I've been trying to not use this argument, but let's try not to use the argument of that because there's out for said card, that it is healthy for the format, because there's an out for every single card.
Yeah,
so there's an out for Rongo, there's an out for VFD, there's outs for Vandy's Emptiness, there's outs for everything. Every single card that's on the forbidden list has an out, so therefore it should be in the format.
That's not true. Here's what I'm gonna say. If a card has outs that have more uses than just that one card, then that's an argument. Called By. You have so many things you can call by. It's not just in your deck for Maxx C. Will it take up the majority of your time?
Yeah, but let's say you have
Hold on.
You have
3 Ashes also. You want to know what's great about Ash? You can use it on Maxx C. You can use it on Helk. You can use it on any card that's going to give your opponent a card from their deck to their hand. Like,
you can only use it on one, though.
But you're going to see that card more often. These cards aren't... It's not like saying, like, oh, just run MST. It's like, MST really only has, like, oh, you can negate spell card, or you can destroy a spell card that's problematic. Like, this is, oh, Ash Blossom interacts with spells, traps, monsters, and primarily I'm going to use it for Maxx C. But, like, if my opponent doesn't Maxx C, it's just bonus, like, interaction. Which is how my deck plays out. And so I agree that, like, just because a card has an out doesn't mean it's fair, but when those outs are able to hit literally so many other things, I can't say that that's fair to say.
I just want to also mention that Konami, at least they didn't give a reason, because they never give a reason for banning a specific card, but before Upstart Goblin was limited, every single competitive list was running 3 Upstart Goblin. The meme was you're running a 37 card deck. Konami specifically hit a card because it was ran in every single deck. It was an advantage card run in every single deck. Maxx C,
and that's fair,
is an advantage card that would be run in every single deck, but not only that, it would demand 3 spots for Maxx C, how many ever spots for Called By if it's legal in the format, how many ever spots for Crossout. So now you have, at least in the TCG, that is 7 cards that 7 to 8 cards, 7 to 10 cards that you have to run, even though everyone's already running 3 Ash because it is the most versatile, not the most effective, but the most versatile hand trap. Because every
most combo decks are also already running 2. So that's another thing too. Most combo decks already running all the cards you just named. Almost every single.
Yeah.
No. Most of them, if they've got a fragile combo, are running like 2 Called By, 1 Called By.
Okay.
Like,
all right. So you Called By the Maxx C. They hit you with an Ash. You Called By, or you have to Ash their Maxx C. Now you don't have Ash for their combo piece. they cross out your Maxi. Now all of a sudden your Nibiru is live because they already used cross out that. Like it's a card that that you have to respond to it. If you do not respond to it, you lose. And I know there are a lot of hand trap, like Nibiru for instance, is a hand trap that says if you do not respond to this, there's a solid chance that you are losing the game. But Nibiru,
I want you to keep on that. There's a solid chance. That's also a big thing to worry about. It's not that Maxi is always going to win your opponent the game. It is that it raises the chance.
I would like to see the stats on it. I absolutely would, because I do agree that it's like, you know, if it's like a 60-40 kind of split, I would argue that it's a 90-10 split. A 90% chance that you win the game if you resolve Maxi and they take the challenge.
Start testing your games, because I want to see those results, because I personally have not felt Maxi's like outright broken advantage in Master Duel yet.
I haven't been keeping track, and I should have probably, but I didn't really foresee this mini cast thingy happening, at least back when I was first playing it. I can probably count, though, on one hand how many times that I've resolved Maxi and lost after resolving it, probably 50 plus times.
Lucky you, actually, because I can count many times where I've popped Maxi and it's done nothing, and then the game goes 4 more turns and it like had no impact.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. Like from before, is that it forces players to, if they want to be competitive, to play specific decks. Either you're playing a overbearing control strategy that does not special summon very much, or you're playing a completely degenerate combo deck that that's entire focus is to lock your opponent out of the game so they can't activate any of the cards or use any of the cards they drew off of Maxi.
I do actually want to ask one question about that.
Anything else in between is just at an inherent disadvantage.
So you just mentioned that like either you're playing an overbearing combo or a combo deck that's main goal is to prevent your opponent from playing. What's different about that in the TCG right now? Like where are those mid-range decks popping off? Because as far as I've seen, only the like big combo decks and the things like fucking Sword Soul are topping, and nothing else is seeing any sort of.
And I completely agree with that, but that's not a flaw of Maxi. Maxi is just going to exacerbate that problem. It is not going to help that problem at all. It is going to exacerbate that problem. And that's actually where like addressing other cards in the format will also help. Which I don't necessarily want to get on, but stuff like banning Scythe and banning
let's not go down that road.
And
like,
hitting
there's a lot
other
of cards
that are
could hit. My argument is that I think it would in fact bring the ceiling up. It's the Hulk argument. Everyone said when Hulk came out that like, yeah, it'll help those like rogue decks, but it will really help those top tier decks, right? Those are the decks that are going to be exploding.
And they were until they addressed another problem card.
One format that happened, and the reason that format went on so long was because of COVID. It wasn't because of
that's when they didn't release a ban list that one time.
Yeah. So that's why that format felt so bad. But like then when they finally did address the problem card, it wasn't Hulk, and everyone still groaned and were like, every deck is still gonna like blow up with Hulk. And then it didn't. And now it's sitting at probably the most like comfortable place. And it's the same kind of argument. It's just
how many
raw
cards
advantage.
are on the list because of Hulk?
No. There's only 1 or 2 cards that are on there because of Hulk. There are a lot of cards. There are a lot of cards that are on there not because of Hulk.
There's pretty much every single tuner that is on the list that wasn't that. No, I'm not saying that they were there because of Hulk. I'm just saying they now have to think about Hulk if they were to ever bring those cards off the list. But 3 specifically, maybe even more.
How many cards like that though?
There's what
Instant Fusion. Every time they ever release a card, they've had to think about that card, and that's been forever.
No, you're absolutely right. But like, we're not necessarily arguing about Hulk here. But I get what you're saying, is that like, oh, they think that this card is so overbearing, they're being babies about it, but it ended up being a different problem card that they released down the road anyways. It's just Maxi it's a poorly designed card. It is a very poorly designed card.
I don't know that it's poorly designed. I think that it's. I mean, we've been talking about it for like 30 minutes now. I think it's a much more multifaceted issue than just card is bad. Um, I think a lot of reasons that we're like discussing here isn't that Maxi would cause like Maxi would exacerbate an issue that already exists in the game. Like, yes, every deck would be playing it, but that's because every deck has cards that just fucking lock your opponent out or blow up your opponent's board. And it's like, are those cards good? Does it feel good when you set up a combo board and then you just get Forbidden Droplets or Dark Rulered or when you set up a nice back row combo and then you just get Lightning Stormed and you can't do anything about it? Those don't feel good.
They don't, but that's the thing though. You have a deck of at minimum 40 cards. You draw 5 for your turn. If you're going second, you get another card. So that's 6 cards. If you do not draw into that interaction in those 6 cards, it's GG. It's essentially GG. But if you have your opening 5 cards, you're going second, Maxi's one of them, your opponent doesn't have a response to it, and they're playing like a combo deck, you drop Maxi. Now your starting hand is 15 cards. You are now also, and that's exactly what I was saying before, you would now have a much higher chance of having drawn those board-breaking cards and the extenders that you need to completely demolish your opponent, to style on them, to even like, rub it in their face.
But at the same time, you have a chance to draw into your outs to their big board breakers or their big monsters that just literally lock you out of the game. Like Barrier Statue, like there's specific outs to that card. Like you need to see them or you just fucking lose.
So exactly, we're in a situation where you let Maxi come back, and now every single deck has access to it. Okay, let's say you didn't have Maxi. Your opponent sets up their board, but your starting hand was the absolute perfect god hand to break their board and extend through it. You're about to start your play. You're about to break their board. You maybe even bait it out in a gate. They drop Maxi. You don't have a response to it.
Then they drew an obscenely good hand if they can full combo and still have a Maxi in hand.
But that's the thing. Most decks nowadays, most good archetype, like most archetypes being released, have like one card starters. Tri-Brigade has a 1 card starter. Fractal, and even some other cards as well. Drytron is pretty much Drytron Nova plus any other Drytron. I mean, I guess a way to get to Alpha and Zeta, or
I
if you already
are saying, and I think that Maxi is not the problem for that. I think that is an inherent flaw with those decks.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, it's harder to say like, Konami, you can't design stuff like this, than it is to be like, look, you cannot bring this card back, or like this card has to stay banned. It's harder to be like, Konami, stop design, and me and Ahmed talked about this a while ago too, that every deck, like I was telling him the other day, watching him play Master Duel, I was saying like, how many Dragoonity cards are there? There's like 50 of them. I mean, that's over exaggeration, but there's a lot of Dragoonity cards, and they all do something different. Now jump to something Tri-Brigade. How many main deck monsters are there? There's 4 of them, and each of those monsters individually do what 10 Dragoonity monsters do. And that's just power creep. That's just the design of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any way to counteract that other than like just moving on to another game or playing a more simplified format.
No, I think there is a way to beat that, and I think I'll say this: I don't think you could just unban Maxi tomorrow and it would be okay. But I think that we could easily get to a point where Maxi was fine in the game as long as we crept away from this version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where, yeah, everything's a 1-card starter and you don't need your hand. Like, I think that's, in my opinion, just poor design. I don't think Maxi's a poorly designed card. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has gotten to a point where it's so poorly designed that Maxi could just completely ruin the game.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but that's just the game, and that's the way the game is played now. And that's actually, some people hate it. Some people actually really, really like that you can combo off and do all these convoluted combos and stuff like that. I will say, going full combo, it's fun. It really is fun. I just think that the end board, like, but we're veering off. I was just saying that the end boards are a little bit overbearing, but Maxi is not going to help that. It is going to just make it worse. And I see that you're trying to argue that it's not. It's going to help more than it's going to hurt. I
I
can
think there'd be growing
promise you.
pains, but I
I
think
can
in the end it would
promise
go
you,
well.
it's going to hurt more. It's
Initially,
absolutely
yes.
not initially. It's going to hurt more. This is how this played out during Dragon Ruler format. This is exactly what's going to happen now. It's going to become a card of, does your opponent, does a player have Maxx C? Okay, they win. That is absolutely how it's going to go, because that is how it's been in the past. We have, and that's how it's going now in Master Duel too.
Are you planning on dropping Master Duel because of Maxx C?
No, it's fun. It's our
Oh,
official simulator.
okay.
It's
So,
also a best of one format, which is another thing I wanted to touch on as well.
oh, you think Maxx C is healthier in a best of one?
I think it's not as degenerate because you can just be like, all right, next.
I think the exact opposite. I think in a best of one, Maxx C's impact is actually unplayable. I'm gonna give you that. Like in a game one situation, Maxx C is so punishing it's a sack. It's the
It is.
Imperial Order. It's a sack.
No, it's
In
a
a best
stack
of
that's
three, so here's the biggest part. Remember when you were talking about like, oh, every deck's gonna have to run all of these like anti-Maxx C cards? Wouldn't it be great if there was like a certain like side deck or something that you could put those cards in, and so if that card came up, you'd have an out that you didn't necessarily have to main deck, but you could put in when it happens?
So now you're side decking around one card that is legal in every single deck. You're not side decking for a strategy. You're not side decking for your worst matchup. You're side decking for
You
a
are side decking for your worst
single,
matchup.
your
You are
worst
side
matchup
decking for
being
your
a
worst.
single card. If you
My
can't see how unhealthy that is for the game to have to run and play specific cards, even in your side, especially in your side deck,
most
because
of the
side deck
time,
matches are
my
won in your side deck, and
most of the
you're
time
running
my side
cards.
deck is against, if Maxx C was that toxic to my strategy personally, if I could not play through it, yes, that would be the biggest thing I need to play against. The reason my side deck up until this ban list was filled with like tanker tops and shit like that was because of Imperial Order. Because if that card was seen, I needed to fucking stack my deck with outs.
And Imperial Order is a degenerate card as well that has its place in the ban list right now. Thank God.
But my point is that, like, if Maxx C is so volatile to your strategy, yeah, why not make your side deck, like, able to deal with it?
Because there's 15 extremely valuable spots in there that you should have to, that should be used to cater to the meta, not a specific card.
If every deck is playing Maxx C, is that not catering to the meta?
That is catering to of a specific card in the meta. Yes, that card is meta, but it's not a strategy. It's not like I'm gonna run this card because this card really shuts down this specific strategy. It's I have to run this card because if somebody drops Maxx C on me, it's just game over. It's a loss. It's a sack card. And you are absolutely right. It is a sacky card. And
In a best of one. I don't think it's sacky in a best of three.
It's extremely sacky in a best of three. Because, like, again, game one, if they have Maxx C, you don't have the out. All right, game two. Immediately, game two. If your deck loses to it. Because, you're either playing into it and giving your opponent so much advantage that whatever you do is completely irrelevant, or you're ending your turn right there and they just win on the crackback.
Again, though, that's no different than drawing into your forbidden droplets in a
But
best
that's
of
the
three,
thing. Maxx
or
C
drawing
helps you
into
draw into those cards.
yes,
Yeah.
if your opponent plays into it. It also has that whole aspect of your opponent has the option to give you those chances.
It's literally, it's like holding a gun to your back and be like, look, you don't have to walk off the cliff, but if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. Like, it's your choice. You can jump off the cliff right now, or you can walk over to the side and I'm gonna shoot you in the goddamn head.
I don't
Like,
think that's the best analogy.
like it's absolutely, well, I mean, it's not the best analogy, but it's the one that I thought of right off the top of my head. But like it's the same kind of thing. It's like, look, you can lose here, or you can make your board pass back to me, and you can lose then. That is because
Maybe both of those are maybes. Again,
A high
this is all
probability.
maybes
A
because
high probability.
playing into Maxx C doesn't guarantee that your opponent see it gives them a high chance, but it doesn't guarantee that they're going to see the exact out they need.
But it's not about
And
the
on the
out. It's
opposite
about
side,
it's about the extenders that you can draw into. Most decks are running starters, extenders, and maybe a couple of board breaking cards. If you draw the critical mass of extenders to the point where you can you can just extend past all of your opponent's interaction, it's essentially the same as drawing the board breaking cards.
no, that's not true because if your opponent goes full combo, then can you really extend through, like, let's say Drytron in
Okay, but
Master
let's
Duel?
not
As they
necessarily
set
say
up
Drytron or Rongo
7
or
or 8
VFT.
Omni negates.
Let's say you're
Can you
playing
play
against
through
Earth
that?
Machine and you drop Maxx C. So what if they have a Regeki in their graveyard, a once per turn Regeki? So what if they have an untargetable Bungus? Like, it in a quick effect pop, I have 15 cards in hand, all which extend me past that amount of interactions. It essentially makes it so that those decks cannot do that.
And I will say this, we both play rogue decks, and like we just have to accept that those are situations that are always going to happen
but
for
that's
the
the thing.
rest
It
of the time we play
exacerbates that
Yu-Gi-Oh!
problem. It exacerbates that problem. I understand that I play Rogue. I don't want Maxx C as much as Maxx C would help me in this, and it would help my deck. The fact that every single that's the reason why I don't play Earth Machine in Master Duel. If I see Maxx C, there's nothing I can do. Like I just lose. That's why I play a really just Oonga Boonga beatdown blind second deck that runs 3 Maxx C so that I can just break their board and win. That's the thing. It encourages specific types of decks to be played, and it exacerbates the issue that's already here. It does not help. The best decks are going to get better. The worst decks aren't going to get better. They're also going to get worse because now the best decks are better. It makes everything worse. It makes everything exacerbated.
I don't think it makes things as worse as or how do I phrase this? Things are already bad for us. I don't think Maxx C kills us entirely. I think that because it's a tool that we can use, it's like fucking DPE right now. Like, because I can use it, like, it sucks. It's a shitty card, but it helps me, so like, cool. When it gets used against me, it hurts just as much as any other card. I don't know, I think that, like, our decks as rogue decks are just prone to that problem, and there's always going to be a card in that slot, and Maxx C is just another one of those.
It is, but I'd rather a card like DPE be legal in a format than a card like Maxx C. And I know that's I'd rather a card like Verte be legal in the format than Maxx C.
I wouldn't. I think that Maxx C is a much fairer and more balanced card than Verte. That can be the hottest take I ever have. I think Verte is one of the most poorly designed cards that has ever been printed in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think Maxx C is like the fair. I think Maxx C and Mystic Mine can be at 3 and like guarantee to draw them before I say Verte is fair.
I completely disagree. I will give you that Verte is probably up there when it comes to poorly designed cards and
like
cards
top
that are
5
unhealthy
worst designed cards of all time.
I don't know if I'd say that. I can see it being up there, but at the same time, like I just feel like there's so many other cards out there that are just absolutely more degenerate than that. And I would say Maxx C in terms of like degeneracy is up there, probably top 10 if not top 5. And like, again, I don't want to like use this to be like, well, I lived through it, like, you know, that kind of stuff, but you didn't play back then. I did. I played a deck that is extremely similar to the one that I play now. At the time I was playing Geargia Karakuri. And
yeah, you got a type.
Yeah, I do. Earth Machine for life. And at the time, that it essentially killed the deck. Not killed the deck until it got hit. When Maxx C was banned, it was just it was such a relief just from the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Like, you go to locals next day, they're like, oh, thank God this card is banned. Finally, we don't have to deal with this card anymore. It's just not It's not a good card, and like I don't know how much more I can go on to. I mean, it's a good card, but like not healthy. But I don't know how much more I can go on. I've already said all my points. I've argued all my things. I guess we'll just agree to disagree. I don't know if you have any more to add to the to the topic.
Let me think here. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to touch on from the beginning, but we kind of just naturally derailed. As is normal with our debates. I guess, yeah, the last thing I will say is that I think, again, I did not play back when it was like legal in the TCG, and obviously there are much different lists. I don't think, like I said, it could come back right now, but I think if the TCG unbanned or like let off some cards like Called by the Grave, why is that card at 1? And gave more options
To push sales for Crossout. No, but that's another card too. Called by the Grave is actually incredibly strong.
I think it's a more fair card than Crossout. Let's not talk about that.
I also agree with you there, but I still think
like,
that Called by the One is understandably fair. Would I like to see it at more? Yes, but I digress.
My point is that like if you give more options, then like we were just saying, if you as a strategy as Earth Machine just straight up lose to Maxx, I think like having more options is awesome, and it helps you not just lose those games. And you can main deck them, you can side deck them, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but you have options against it. Whereas, yeah, if Maxx came back right now, it would literally be a problem. But that's just because, like, you're limited on how you can interact with it.
I get what you're saying.
But yeah, I don't have too much else to say. I think this went exactly how I expected it to.
Yeah,
we're
doing pretty good there for like the beginning part.
Yeah. I didn't think no. My point is like I didn't think we were gonna come out of this like on the same side.
Oh God,
like,
no.
No, I knew this was gonna be like
us. You're even more in your
like,
field. I'm even more in mine.
No, I see a lot of your points. It's just there are some things that I think we have fundamental differences on how we view what's okay in this game and what's not.
And yeah, and again, I don't want to keep playing this card, but if I hadn't played through when it was legal, if I hadn't, I'd honestly probably be more inclined to agree with you. But all the points you're making are all the happened. They happened back in the day. Those are the points people were making back when it was legal.
But you made a point too that there was this huge power creep that happened, and like my point is that something needs to be done that stops combo decks from literally always being the #1 top deck in the field. It's very frustrating to play against a deck that if I don't have any card that can interact with it, fucking Tri-Brigade, Bird Up, I can ash them at their choke point and imperm them, and they can still set up a board that like most decks can't play through.
No, I also completely agree. I don't think Maxx is the way. Honestly, what I would like to see, actually I wouldn't like to see this because I don't like playing control decks, but more powerful control decks being made. No,
you don't want that. You don't want that because
realistically that's really, in my opinion, the only way that like it can keep those combo decks in check. But but ever since like I don't
multifaceted issue we can talk about at some point. Because
the last thing I was just gonna say was I don't think we'll ever get to a point where combo decks are not going to be the best deck in the meta, because ever since Wind Up in Zector format, combo decks have been the premier deck of choice for most people. They're the deck people most that associate most with Yu-Gi-Oh! Those long combos that get you to some convoluted board state to completely like either win the game on like FTK, OTK type of combos, or to get out of certain things. That is what people most closely associate with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't think Konami would do anything to jeopardize that identity.
I have a point to make, but it's not related to Maxi, so I'll just tell you after we end this recording.
Okay, all right.
You're not
so
missing anything, guys, because it's not that exciting.
all right. Well, if you've stuck around this long to hear us yell at each other, I just want to thank you for listening. This has been Shane from the Table501YGO podcast.
And this has been Justin. And this
Thanks
is whatever the fuck we named this segment.
Yeah, this is whatever the fuck we decided to call it.